In this tutorial, we're going to look at using pre-built animation in Flash CS5.5. So first of all, we're going to have a look at motion presets. We're working with the file about.fla here. So what we're actually going to do, if we have a look at this file in Flash, is we're going to animate the words that appear in the center of the stage. So we've got a few different words here, and we're going to animate each one in a slightly different way using the motion presets. Each of the words is on its own separate layer. So first of all, we can notice in the timeline, all of the layers are only on one keyframe at the moment. So in order to create an animation, we need to extend out the timeline a little bit further so we can actually create our animation there. So what I'm going to do is go to frame 100 and just right click, select all of the layers and right click and choose insert frame. I can just press F5 on a PC or function F5 on a Mac, and I'll insert some frames there to allow me to animate over the timeline for a few seconds. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to frame 1, just drag the playhead back to frame 1, and I'm going to stagger out those 3 keywords that I mentioned out over a number of frames. So if I drag the first one out to frame 80, just by clicking and dragging on the first keyframe, dragging it over to frame 80. The second one to frame 60, third one to frame 40. And I'm going to leave the layer with the word shoes on it on frame 1. And this is the one that we're going to animate first of all. So I'm going to click on keyframe 1 in the shoes layer to select it, and I'm going to go to the window drop down menu at the top of my screen and choose the motion presets panel. So the motion presets panel is going to pop open. I can also access this from the sub toolbar on the left side of my properties panel here, which is usually the second last icon, depending on what way you've got your workflow set up. But anyway, you can always access it from the Windows menu. Next, I'm going to open the default presets folder inside the motion presets panel and have a look through the various types of animations that we can actually do. So the motion presets is preset animations that can be applied to any symbol. So you've got things like bounces and zooms, fly in from the left, fly in from the right, blur to focus, and so on. Lots of different effects that you can use as a starting point or as the end result of your animation, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So what we're going to do with this shoes layer is use one of the presets here called fly in blur from bottom. So what we have to do is select this one in the list and then click apply, making sure that we have previously selected the keyframe that we want to apply the motion tween to. And as soon as we click apply, the motion tween will be added to our layer, or our layer will be converted into a motion tween, whichever way you want to look at it. So what we're going to need to do now is drag and drop the motion tween on the stage so that we can actually see the word shoe where we want to see it, because just by default, the way this is set up at the moment, when the animation finishes, if we just drag the playhead over, we can see when the animation finishes, the word shoe appears off stage, so that's not what we want. So we just click on the motion tween, or the representation, the visual representation of the motion tween on the stage, to select it, and then we can literally click and drag to move it around. This is the beauty of motion tweens as opposed to classic tweens. It allows us to actually move it after we've created the entire animation. So we can drag that down so the last frame shows the word shoe in the center of the stage. Next, we're going to insert a frame in frame 30 so that we can see the word for a second after it actually stops animating. This is a useful technique, otherwise it would just animate and disappear. So the reason we're doing this is so that it will animate, stop in the center, and then stay there for a second before it disappears. Okay, so on to the next layer. The jeans layer, we're going to do a fly in blur from the left. So the shoes comes in from the bottom, the jeans layer is going to come in from the left. So I'm going to add a frame on frame 60, and I'm going to add the motion preset for blur in from left, and click apply to make that turn into a motion tween. And there we go. And on the next layer as well, I'm going to do the blur right, fly in blur right motion preset. So that now we're going to get a nice effect where shoes is coming in from the bottom, jeans from the left, and the next one coming in from the right. Okay, so we might need to just do a little bit of tweaking on the actual motion tweens to drag them left or right, because there may be some overlap, and we don't actually want any overlap in this case. And for the last example here, the style layer, we're going to use the zoom in 2D preset, which is slightly different. So I'm going to select the style layer and go to my motion presets, choose zoom in 2D, the preset, and click apply, and the motion tween is applied. And now we're just going to tweak this as well, move it a little bit into position. And one of the great things about motion tweens is that you can extend or decrease the length of the motion tween and it will stay in proportion. So if I click and drag from either the beginning or the end of the motion tween and resize it over the timeline, it's going to actually stay in proportion, so depending on what animation we're dealing with. And also you can click and adjust the keyframes inside the motion tween just by first of all clicking on it and letting go, and then clicking on it and dragging it left or right. So you've got to select it first and then click and drag left or right to move the keyframe. Can be a little bit fiddly if you're not familiar with that, but once you get to know it, it's pretty intuitive. Okay, so let's test the movie now and see how it looks. And we can see the shoe is blurring in from the bottom, stopping in the middle, jeans coming in from the left, and our next word from the right, and style is zooming in from the center, just the way we wanted. And so you can apply these motion presets to any number of applications depending on what your animation project might be. The next thing we're going to look at is creating and reusing custom presets. So again, we're going to start with the about FLA file, and we're going to look at the how we can reuse our own custom presets here. That's when we create an animation, a custom animation, and then we can reuse that in a different context. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the more than layer, and I'm going to add a filter there so that the word starts out completely blurred out of focus. So if we just click on frame 1 of the more than layer and then click on the symbol, click on the filters panel and select blur and increase the amount of blur to 30 pixels so that we can no longer see it on the stage, it's blurred out of focus. And then I'm going to right click on the keyframe and add a motion tween. I'm going to go to frame 15, just drag the playhead over, and then I'm going to click on the symbol and apply a blur of 0 at this stage. So we're animating the blur. So it's going to start at 30 pixels and over 15 frames it's going to go to 0. So essentially we're going to go from an out of focus image to an in focus image. And let's just test that out, see how it looks, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Now if I click on the motion tween and right click or control click on a Mac, and then from the drop down menu I can choose the option save as motion preset, and I'm going to give it a name, blur in, because that's basically what the animation is doing, it's blurring in. And once I've saved that, where the preset goes is into the custom presets folder in the motion presets panel. So if I create a new layer now, we can just illustrate how this actually works. So I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to call it Enviro Friendly. And then if I open my library tab, we'll notice in the assets folder there is a symbol called Environmentally Friendly. I'm going to drag that out from the library onto the stage. And I'm just going to adjust my keyframes here so that the more than ends in frame 15 and Enviro Friendly begins after that, so they're not overlapping. I'm actually going to drag this out closer to the end of the movie, maybe frame 80, just so it appears at the end and gives a bit of space in between. Also, I'm going to make the more than symbol disappear once it reaches frame 90. So now once we want to apply a custom preset to any of our symbols, all we have to do is click on the keyframe, open our motion panel, motion presets panel, and go to the custom presets folder. And in there we will find any presets, any motion presets that we've saved previously. So in here we can see the blur in preset. So we're going to click on that and click apply, and our blur in preset has been added to the enviro-friendly symbol. Let's test our movie now just to see how it's all looking. And we can see our text animating in from the bottom, the left, the right, zooming in, and also we've got our preset, custom preset motion presets in operation on the more than and enviro-friendly text layers. So this has been a quick introduction to using pre-built animation techniques in Flash CS5.5, and also how you can use your own custom animations and turn them into custom presets that you can reuse over and over again in your projects.